What's up, Mono Brats? It's Spiritual God here, and welcome to a new series called What If Harry Found His Magical Core. Now, this is a series which is completely different as well as an interesting story, and Harry's going to be stronger than in canon. I mean, the canon storyline, but not like super OP. There's another What If coming for that, a super OP What If. So make sure to be ready for that. Anyways, I have already made a Harry Potter series which was What If Harry Got Bit by the Spider, but I have stopped that now because, well, number one, I just blabbed the entirety of the story instead of writing the script normally. But since I have developed from that time, like the 2 months break I took, it was, you could say, enlightening that for my videos more or less. So yeah, anyways, I'm talking a lot, but what if Harry found his magical core? Part 1 is this video. So yeah, I'll explain what magical core is in a little bit after the intro. So yeah, without any further ado, let's get watching. So magical core is a container of magic inside a person's body which is used by the wizard or witch or mage or whatever you want, who you define as. You draw magic from this core. Now when how much magic you use, it depends on the amount of magic that your core has. So if you deplete your magic or mana, if you deplete your mana, sometimes the core would like you could say grow in length, meaning you would have more magical power, your magic would be more denser, like that. But what if Harry got his magical core is the question this time. So let's start our story. Our story starts off with a little Harry, 7-year old exact. He's running from the Dudley, not the Dursleys, Dudley Dursley and his group of friends who are playing Harry hunting. So basically, Harry hunting is the game which Dudley invented with the support of his parents to hunt Harry whenever possible and make his life miserable. Now the Dudleys were kind of messed up, and I'm kind of giving them redemption in the story arc. So if you guys hate Dursleys, just skip to the time screen or I mean, just click to the time you could say time skip to in the given in the current below. I mean, given currently in the screen below. So, and if you don't want to, you can just continue. Anyways, so Harry would go to a corner and hide behind in a garbage bin where he would be scared, not of Dudley or getting beat up. Harry has been beat up a lot of times, so he kind of gained an immunity for that, but he's still scared, but not as scared as what would happen afterwards. So Dudley would beat him up. I mean, if Dudley would beat him up, he would be like bruised, and the teachers of the school he's going currently, the teachers would ask what happened, and when Harry wouldn't respond, I mean, like reply to them, they would call their guardian. They would call his guardians, which are the Dursleys. The Dursleys would beat the shit out of him, starve him, and so on and so forth. And Harry does not really want to do it. So the Dudley gang are you could say inching closer to Harry, and Harry is scared about what might happen afterwards. He gets beat. He's so scared that he wishes himself to be teleported. The kid knows a little bit of stuff, and he knows what teleporting means, because come on, he's a 7-year-old kid, and at this point, like in the 1980s, the games were more popular than before. But yeah, anyways, Harry would hear a sound and a pop sound, and when he would and he would feel weird in his body, like something is pulling him apart. And when Harry would open his eyes, he would see that he's in somewhere else where he wasn't before. Before he was in the alleyway covering, and now he's in the rooftop above the school. Harry is, well, first shocked, but that's when Harry remembers how Petruna, or his aunt always called him a freak, and Harry thinks that this is his freakishness, more or less. And then Harry gets scared about how he's gonna go back down and how he's gonna get beat the shit out of because he used his freakishness. He's again so scared that he again closes his eyes and wishes to be evil, teleported, because that's what he thinks, because he doesn't know how he did it. And there's another sound, and then and his body starts stretching again, and then he comes back to the playground where he ran away from Dudley at the beginning. And Harry opens his eyes and sees that he's in the playground, which kind of surprises him. And Harry has this feeling inside his body that is not going away. It's kind of fading fast, but Harry quickly remembers it into his mind, wanting to know more about this his freakish side of his. Maybe he can control it so his relatives won't beat him, because Harry is a smart kid. He knows that there are some weird things happening around him, and maybe that, and Petruna and the Dursleys happily point that out by beating the shit out of him whenever something goes wrong or something weird happens. Harry would quickly run back to class and he would sit down, and the teachers would come after the break, and the teacher would continue teaching while Harry would just think about what happened. He doesn't know what the meaning of teleport till now because he's not that advanced in the games, because he doesn't play a game, because that's all Dudley's things. So Harry would go back, quickly run home, and or well, he shouldn't call that home. It's basically a protection for him. Harry has decided on something. When he would turn 18, the legal age for, well, I think it is for England. 18 is the legal age for England, right? I don't know, but let's just say that 18 is the legal age for England. And when Harry would turn 18, he would run off of the Dursley's house, and he would live on his own, grow on his own, and stuff like that. That's Harry's plan, but it's gonna change. Harry would go back to his protection place, and there Petrona would first talk smack about him, then tell him to do the chores, which he would give a list for, and she would just go and drink some tea while Harry would do the chores. After that, Harry would make the dinner, and Vernon and Dudley, who forgot about the whole Harry incident because Dudley's kind of a stupid fella, he would forget about the incident and he would just eat like a damn whale, while Petrona would just eat a little bit because, well, her whole figure is slimmer than the Dursleys, so yeah, she would eat less. And Harry would eat scraps and pieces of the food that he made. And then the Petrona and Vernon both would shove Harry to the cupboard under the stairs and would close the door, locking it up, leaving Harry alone. Now Harry has time, a lot of it, because the next day is a Saturday, the weekends. The next day is the next 2 days are the weekends. So Harry would decide to test his so-called freakishness. He remembers the feeling, which is now long gone by now. But he closes his eyes, sits in a meditative position, or well, for Harry, he's just lying down. He's just lying down, and closes his eye and thinks and tries to replicate the feeling that he had before. And it takes a while, but he's successful. And when he opens his eyes, there's a bright emerald color shining upon him, and which Harry needs to get adjusted to. Harry's eyes need adjusted to due to and Harry covers his eyes and realizes that he's not wearing glasses, and so he touches his eyes where he's not wearing glasses, and then when he opens his eyes, he sees a ball of energy, more or less. He doesn't know what to call it, but he just calls it the ball thingy for now, but we know what it is, the magical core. Harry would be amazed and shocked, and Harry would mumble, so this is the freakishness thing that aunt called it something. Harry would just mumble how this is kind of cool and this is kind of freaky, like replicating what Aunt Petunia would say at this moment. And Harry would feel a weird sensation. He wouldn't know what it is, so and he would see his body. It is spiritual. He's in a spiritual form. Harry doesn't know what spiritual even means, by the way. He's just flying in a dark space with only the emerald ball giving the light. And Harry would kind of swim, will himself towards the ball of energy, which he would do, and he doesn't know how he did it, but he ain't gonna question things. Harry boy just lets things go. That's mostly what Harry did most of the years before the fifth year. And Harry would notice something. The ball of energy is his energy. He would understand it very quickly, but there are threads connecting things. There are like a total of 7 threads connecting to various different things. So the first thread that he goes to is similarly to his color, green thread, and when he goes closer to it, he feels warm inside him. And Harry, the more he goes closer to the green thread, and the more he feels warm, and when he was is going to almost touch it, but he stops and he feels this warm. He decides to close his eyes and check something. And when he would focus his attention on he would close his spiritual eyes of his spiritual body, and he would focus on the thread which would connect to his body. And Harry would just mumble, protection. Harry would be confused about how the hell he knows this, and Harry would definitely question it, just making an assumption that something happened, or he doesn't know what, but the green thread is connected to his ball of energy, giving him a protection that he doesn't know what the protection is actually, and he wouldn't know for quite a couple of years. Then Harry would turn and he would see another thread, like tightly binding the core. And Harry would be confused and he would think that he should just release it. And when he would go to that core, he would feel a warm sensation again. But this core would be a white colored core. And Harry would feel the warm sensation again, but not as much as the green thread. Harry would be confused, but since he can feel a warm sensation in his body, he kind of decides to trust this white core. Remember, Harry is naive. That kid is like what, 7, and he hasn't felt warm in his a warm feeling. That kid has suffered a lot. I mean, if you guys think about it, he's like, whoa, the most worst character, not worst character's backstory in the entirety of Friction. The only one who can even compare to him is Sasuke, from what I think. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, Sasuke would be the only one who could even compare to Naruto's life, like the sadness of Naruto's life. So yeah. Anyways, I'm going off topic. So Naruto would decide to put his trust on the white thread as well as the green thread. Anyways, after deciding to put his trust in the white thread, he would look around the core and he would see 4 threads connecting with this core. 2 which is also wrapped around his ball of energy, but not as tightly as the white core. So he decides to test them out, and that its color is gray, which he kind of is confused. So he decides to, and he doesn't feel anything, so he decides to remove it. But then he stops and he remembers something which he studied in a book. For every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Now Harry doesn't know why he thought of this line, but realizes that since he doesn't know what this is, it might be dangerous. And this thought also gets reinforced when Harry looks at another thread, one connecting to connecting to his core. But when Harry goes near it, he feels violated, dark, vile. He feels that kind of feeling which he has felt a lot of times during the Dursleys, and that color is black. Harry doesn't even want to go near it, but he needs to see where this core is. So he closes his eye, spiritual eyes, and looks at it, and he sees that this black thread connects towards his head, or most importantly, his scalp. Harry realized that he needs to check on this car why the hell it is going on, but he's not gonna be near the black thread anywhere soon. After that, Harry would go and like swim back to another two threads which is connecting his core, but they are red. And Harry, when like closing his eyes and sensing it, he would realize that these two threads are going out of his body and covering the whole house, which would kind of confuse him at first, but then he would realize what he told he then he would realize what happened when he first sensed the first thread, that is the green thread, protection. Then he realizes this red thread is giving, he's using his ball of energy to give the protection to this house. Now Harry is wondering why, and he needs to ask the Dursleys the question. But Harry's not gonna do that stuff right now. But Harry is definitely going to search more into this red and gray and black. He leaves the green and white for now, because I'll explain what it is currently, I mean right now. So basically, if you guys have mostly understood what it is, you might have understood. The green is the protection that Lily gave him by sacrificing her life. The gray, through the two threads which is surrounding his magical core are gray colored. Those colored are belong to Dumbledore, and Dumbledore has put on a charm, or put on a location charm, as well as a health monitoring charm, so he could like see how Harry is living. Yes, I'm gonna make this a Dumbledore bashing, kind of Dumbledore bashing. You might want to see how this goes, because I would try to in this what I'm trying to show every character's real personalities that the books were given, instead of being, you could say, biased. So I'll try my best, but if you think it's biased, just just tell me in the comments, in the description below. I'll try to change the story kind of a little bit. But anyways, the red, as you guessed it, are the blood warts. And no, I don't believe the bullshit that Dumbledore said about Harry's protection being used as blood warts. That's his bullshit, because Harry's mother, or Lily, gave Harry her protection using her own life. Why the hell would she even try to connect Petruna with that? I mean, Lily is smart, real smart, and she would. I don't think Lily would want Harry to be near Petruna because well, Petruna is a jealous bitch, and yeah, Lily wouldn't want Harry to even be near her. So I mean, if Lily decides to like bring Harry towards Petruna, that would be okay. If Lily dies, she would not want Harry to be handed to Petruna. So that's why I think Lily would use her protection with her own life as a catalyst to protect Harry and Harry only. And the connection would be the thread, the green thread. Then the next white thread is the suppressing his magical core. If you might thinking that Dumbledore is the one who did it, no, I don't think so. I have a theory about this. There are many theories about this, but I'll tell this one. I'll tell the first theory that I know. That is, James is the one who put this on Harry. Now you might be wondering, why is this going to be like the bashing where James is going to be bashed? Is James going to be alive or something? Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do is that because Harry is known for his humongous magical core, his humongous magical potency. So much so that he He even surpasses Dumbledore's one, actually. Yeah, if you guys don't believe me, it is written in the books. Before Dumbledore died, Dumbledore himself confirmed the fact that Harry has a higher magical potency than him. So yeah, uh, James, realizing this when Harry was born, put a suppressor on it. And if you guys don't know what suppressor is basically that the kids are put on suppressed mode until they can get a hold of their power. Because James didn't really think he was gonna die when he put the suppressor on. So the suppressor should be removed like little by little. But since James isn't there to remove it, it's just gonna be stuck there until Harry's gonna remove it. And yes, if you guys still haven't figured it out, Harry's gonna remove the charms and things placed on him later, not right now. Then the black one, as you guessed it, the Horcrux of Voldemort. You know how Voldemort made Harry a Horcrux? Yeah, I think the black substance represents uh, the Horcrux easily. So Harry does no, anyways. After I've explained this, so I'll continue with the story. So Harry would mostly stay on the location with the white and the green thread, mostly green, but he would go on to white as well. But then he would realize the time is up. He needs to ask some questions, realize some things, and he has stuff like that. But he's kind of scared to go against Dudley's, but he needs to. Well, he has to. So Harry would wake up, which would be exactly the time when Petruna would knock on his door, and Harry, wearing his glasses, would get out, brush his teeth, do his the morning necessities, and start making breakfast. And after making breakfast, Vernon would all, just like always, comment how grateful Harry should be that they are letting him staying here. But Harry, knowing things right now, and Harry, knowing things that he didn't before the day before, explodes, saying how he is the one who's protecting them. His freakish, his ball of energy is connected to the house where he's going to protect them, and he can yank it out whenever he wants. So be careful. Now this first shocks Dudley, Dursley, all three Dursleys, but then Vernon and Petruna get angry. Harry and both of them start calling him freaks, and Vernon tries to hit Harry, but that's when Harry explodes. His anger explodes, and he thinks the house starts to shake a little, just a little bit, and but the Dursleys easily feel it, as well as a photo of Vernon the Dursleys eating happily is broken, and some of the things are tables are shaken, as well as some of things are levitating. Harry is pissed. Oh, Harry is pissed, alright. He's pissed at the treatment has been given. The protection that has been given in this house is enough, and he's gonna have answers, now. Harry would explain to them, tell them straight on their face, and Petruna would be shocked and a little scared, which Harry would notice, and Harry would ask, "What?" Petruna, mumbling, she would say, "Magic." And Harry, realizing the word for it, now it would be, instead of like a freakish ball of nature, a freaky ball of energy, which he was calling it before, now he'd call it a magic ball, a magic core, which just comes in his mouth. And Harry would ask, "How do you know about this?" Petruna wouldn't tell anything at first, but Harry would like put his rage on her, like, "Tell me." And the things would shaking again, and Petruna, being scared, would tell him how he is the wizard, would start to tell him some things while hiding things, but the more she tells, the more she reveals, and at the end of it, she reveals everything she knew about the magical world. And that is how then what she told Harry was about him being a wizard, his parents being, well, Harry being a son of both Lily Potter and Harry James Potter, and how Harry's parents were killed by warlord, more or less, and how they were kept. Harry was pushed here by Dumbledore for protection, not for Harry but for also them, because of the connection with Petruna and Lily. And also Vernon would comment about how freakish would that be, but Harry would stare him down, which would kind of scare him, Vernon off. But Petruna would start continuing about how Dumbledore left him in the doorstep and gave a letter for him, and this would kind of make Harry furious about how this Dumbledore guy left him in this damn house. He needs to learn more about it. And then Harry would tell them, then I'll give you two options. And the Dursleys, well, Vernon and Petruna, that is. Dudley is fully scared about what is happening right now, so he's not really talking that much. He would give them the option. Number one, he can leave with the wards down, with the blood wards. I mean, that's the name he got, with the blood wards down, and he can leave them on their own devices to get killed. Or number two, he can stay here, leave the blood wards alone, but all he wants is good food, and to be left on alone by the Dursleys, as well as to get a full room instead of staying in the cupboard. This would first Vernon would, you could say, refute this, but Harry would start walking towards the door, and Petruna would stop Harry and accept it. Vernon would be angry, but Petruna would shut him up, which would scare Vernon because Petruna was never this fierce. And Petruna would start shouting at Vernon about how idiotic it is and how Harry is the only one who can protect us from the Death Eaters. Harry would just not smile. Harry would just smile and say, "Oi, Fatso, go clean the damn room." And Dudley, who was down, would be first shaking, but hearing his condescending tone, would get up and start running towards Harry to give him a punch like the old times. But Harry, not currently, he's pissed, remember? Harry would just unconsciously use his magic on Dursley, sending him flying to the wall, knocking him out. And Harry would say, "I won't give one other chance to that guy. Now get up and clean the room." Now Dudley isn't knocked off. He's hit the wall and he's in pain. But hearing Harry's commanding tone, Dudley would run off and start cleaning the room. And after a couple of hours, with Harry eating some stuff from the Dursleys, while Dursley are just scared, Harry would go to his new room, and lock the door with everything from his cupboard taken. Harry would take it, and 4 years would pass. Now, in this 4 years, there would be something different, and that would be Harry. Harry, after the day of his during the day of his whole rage boost, Harry would say how that spoiled Dudley is, and he should move his ass, while Dudley is doing this. First, Vernon would be pissed off about this, how the spoiled and useless Dudley is. But after Harry closing it, and after spending time with Dudley, Vernon realizes that Dudley is indeed stupid and useless. Now, Vernon and Petruna would buy Dudley gifts, not for the fact that they wanted to buy Dudley gifts. It was to show Harry that no one would ever love him. That was the main reason. But now Harry wanting them to leave alone, this would reduce the entirety of the cost that Dudleys would buy to the Dursleys would buy to Dudley, causing Dudley to complain, and this would completely shock Petruna and Vernon. So, realizing just how spoiled the kid become. This would cut both the Dursleys to start re-educating Dudley from start. First he complains, but after realizing that he's way too stupid by a shouting from Vernon himself, his dad, who never did anything to him like this, Dudley becomes a little bit smart when Dudley is 11. Now, Petruna, realizing that due to the fact that Harry was the one who cooked them for like around 5 years. She has lost the touch in cooking, causing her to start relearning it. Now, Vernon really doesn't change that much except for his attitude, since he realizes that he doesn't even meet Harry mostly because Harry not never comes out of his room most of the time. He just goes to school, comes back, and eats dinner. He doesn't even eat dinner with them from now. Harry would just teleport more or less. Yeah, fucking shit. Anyways, now let's go to Harry. Harry would first like enjoy his for a couple of freedom, but then he would start training. First he would go back to his core and re retry the feeling that he got from the teleportation, which Harry currently now knows it's the name because he found a book about magic in Dudley's one of Dudley's books that he never used. And Harry would learn a couple of like terms about this, and he would call his core magical core, his teleportation abilities, telekinesis, and stuff like that. Harry, this book of the for definitions would be helpful to Harry due to the fact that it would teach Harry what to do and what not to do. Anyways, Harry would first try to duplicate the teleportation that he did, and after a couple of days he would be able to do it, and while knowing how to just reapply the feeling that he felt before, he's easily able to do it on will. But now that's not all. Harry would want perfection. He would realize that there's a sound when he makes it, pop sound, and Harry would want to not like really not want to make any noise. So Harry would train it, and Harry, due to getting access to his core and was seeing how his magic moves throughout his body when he uses the apparition, which he doesn't know what it's called. He just calls it teleportation, but I'm gonna call it apparition, which is the given term by J.K. Rowling. Harry would realize the effective way to not make any sound, and he would do it, which would take a couple of months, but he would be able to master it. But that's not all. Harry would start training a lot. First, due to the fact that there's no Dursley's bullying him, his you could say bruises would start to heal, and he would realize that he can use magic also to heal, so that would be great. Harry would eat healthy, and it would be good for Harry would eat healthy, cook for himself and eat for himself, causing Harry to gain a little bit of weight. His muscle, he would start also training physically, and Harry would grow in height more and more. Meaning at the start, which being 11, Harry would be more taller than what he was in canon. But anyways, Harry would also learn two interesting techniques while modifying apparition. You realize that he can spread magic throughout his body, and he would create a mana body, which would boost his physical stats by a good amount, not a large amount, but just a good amount, like twice or thrice, which would be interesting because he has a little bit of muscles, and he can lift a good amount of things, not way too heavy, but he can lift. And with this mana body, he can lift even a lot more. Then Harry puts things on his senses, which he learned from biologies, that being his nose is like 5 senses, and Harry would unlock the mate senses, meaning the 6th sense, sensing magical aura all around him, which would intrigue Harry. But he would also sense someone else near his house. That would be Mrs. Fitch. If you guys don't know who Mrs. Fitch is, she's the spy sent by Dumbledore in the house to monitor Harry. That doesn't mean Dumbledore knows about this, because Dumbledore thought that Harry would be, well, a sibling rivalry, most or less, because I'm not going to really explain it. I'm going to explain it in the next part, just calm down. Anyways, Harry would also put magic into his eye, causing Harry to learn the mage eyes, which can see who has magic, which also cannot, which is a good skill to have. And it's going to be interesting later on in the story. But not only that, Harry would like grow a good amount, he would learn his knowledge and he would not be the deprived kid that he was at the start of the story. Meaning when the letter comes, Harry reads the letter, and he has been waiting for the letter a couple of days, for like 4 years after knowing about Lily getting his letter too. And Harry would realize that he doesn't know where the hell he needs to go, so he would send a letter back to the Hogwarts for an assistance, and the assistance would come in the form of Hagrid. And Harry, really not knowing what the hell is really happening, so he would just join Hagrid, and Hagrid would tell how he knows about Harry's parents, which would intrigue him. And Harry would listen to Hagrid's stories when they reach, you could say, when they reach the Diagon Alley, and where Harry would be revealed that he's pretty famous for the scar. Now, about the scar, due to the fact that Harry unlocked his magical core, he has been studying a lot his core a lot, and Harry decided to do a small plan which was in which he really doesn't know if it's gonna work, that but he's gonna do it anyways. But Harry would learn about his fable fame his fame and the books that has been written on him, which would Harry would realize that they are fake, and he's gonna sue them, because Harry is kind of smart, because there's no restriction upon placed upon him because of the Dursleys leaving him alone and just paying for the necessities which they should have paid before, by the way. And Harry would just would go to the Gringotts, and that's when Hagrid would just take Harry's key out of his pocket, and Harry would ask what it is, and well, Hagrid, being the ever clueless idiot, would tell him what it is, and Harry would ask why the hell he has it, and Hagrid would say, "Well, it's because Dumbledore gave me." And Harry realizing that's the name, the guy who left him here. Harry ponders the relationship between his parents and Dumbledore, and Harry would ask Hagrid so, and Hagrid would just say that he has been. It's not a very big relationship. Only the relationship they had was a teacher-student relationship. Now this would intrigue Harry more so and anger him, because he still wants to know before he starts blaming someone, because Harry has developed from like blaming everything, because he didn't know the truth before Petrona like blabbed every truth to him or what she knew. So anyways, uh, Harry would also ask, so why isn't he here if he has my key and stuff? Then Hagrid would just say because he's busy, and then the goblin who was helping them would just say, so his magical garden doesn't have time, huh? Now Harry would, with his good senses, would listen to this, but he would not ask any more questions, and he would take a lot of money from his trust vault. And when Hagrid questions Harry he shouldn't take it, Harry just says, it's my vault, I can take how many I want. And Hagrid would just counter back, well, Dumbledore said. Harry then asks, Dumbledore doesn't own me. Dumbledore doesn't know. This is named Dumbledore's money. It's mine. It's my parents. It's my wish that how I can take how many I want. Hagrid, not really knowing how to reboot this logic, would accept it, and then he would go. Then Harry would go and buy some books, but he would also buy Hogwarts the history, because he has a lot of money, as well as he would buy trunk which would be kept in books. He would go to the clothing store, where he would listen to Draco blabbing about things which he would ignore, and then Hagrid would decide to split up, while Hagrid goes and buys Hedwig. Harry goes to the wand store, and he meets Ollivander, and Ollivander starts mumbling about how Harry and his Harry's mother's and father's wand, and Harry would just ask to give him the wand, and Harry, after a couple of attempts, or like a lot of attempts, would get the wand, Phoenix wand, same one that he got in canon. And Hagrid would bring Harry to, Shit. Hagrid would bring Hedwig to and give it to Harry, and Harry would be happy to have an animal. And after that, Hagrid would explain who Voldemort is, which would intrigue him, but not as much. He would, but since everyone is telling that he's dead, he should be, right? Harry just shrugs it off, but he does keep a point that Oliver told him, the scar that has been given on him. And Harry quickly makes two and two together and realizes that the black thing, the black goo substance that is in his head is given to him by Voldemort, and he wants to remove it right now, but he doesn't know how to. But he still remembers the fact that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, so he wants to wait. After that, Hagrid would give him the pass for platform 3.5, 3 like 9 3/4, and Hagrid would leave Harry back to the Dursleys while he would go. Now, Harry knows what he needs to do, and he would come back and tell Dursleys a plan of his, which Dursleys would agree. And Harry, then Vernon it was, why do you want us to do it? Harry would just look at him for a minute and then say, well, your family, even if you didn't treat me like one, you still are. This would make the Dursleys realize that how bad they treated Harry, and the next day the plan would ensue. Harry would be at the library, which he has spent a lot of time in, and he would pick up a call. He would call a special person, and that would be Mrs. Fitch. Harry kind of knows that Mrs. Fitch has something to do with, well, his staying here, like a spy or something. So Harry would call Mrs. Fitch about the cat which has been lost. And when Mrs. Fitch looks around her bundle of cats and one has disappeared, she would tell Harry to wait and she would walk to the library. Now, Harry would apparate and come in from the Dursleys, which would scare Vernon, but he would pick her up and he would start loading all his things that he has packed already to the cargo attached that he has attached to his car, and Harry would also help it. And Vernon, seeing Harry's physical strength, would be kind of scared. But Dudley is keeping Harry's the cat of Mrs. Fudge. Fix. I forgot what his name is. Basically, the spy that Dumbledore has sent to keep an eye on Harry. She would give it to him. I mean, Harry would then say goodbye to the Dursleys forever, and while then the Dursleys would just, well, run off. And what is the plan? The plan was that the Dursleys to leave Britain or to leave the place where they were staying at, while Harry breaks the protection so they wouldn't be like harmed in any shape or form. And after some compelling from, well, everyone, the Vernon and Petrona agree, and yeah, so they are leaving the Surrey. They're leaving the Pelvet Drive, and Harry, getting back the cat that Mrs. Fitch owned, would teleport back to where he was last standing. And after a couple of minutes, Mrs. Fitch would arrive, and Harry would give her the cat back to her, and Mrs. Fitch would thank her, and Harry and her would have a small talk. And after that, Harry would just run back to the library where he would apparate, and at that point he would stay a couple of minutes to see Miss Fitch truly leaving, and Harry would apparate back to the private drive and he would sit in the middle of the room meditating. Harry would go back to score and he would be ready. There are 4 threads that he needs to remove. First, he would go through the 2 red threads and he would yank them out of his core, disconnecting the blood wards which was connected to his magical core. Then Harry would go to the grey and he would yank it off that as well. Now, Harry would not be touching the black anytime soon until he gets to really know what it is. So Harry would just yank off the red thread, the 2 red threads as well as the 2 grey threads, that being the blood wards as well as the monitoring and location charm that Dumbledore put on him. And after that, Harry would carry his luggage which he has bought and would apparate to the leaky quadrant to get a room. Now we are gonna view Dumbledore's side later to the next episode. So that's all for this episode, guys. If you guys really like this video, like, share, subscribe, do the necessary stuff, And if you don't, I can understand. But the story is gonna get interesting from now on, because I'm gonna make a little twist here and there. But Harry's gonna be OP and he's gonna have a different set of friends. You guys know why, and I'm gonna give like a reasonable reason for it, for I think why he shouldn't have the set of friends that he had. So yeah, anyways, peace out.